So we're going to look at skeletal muscle physiology and the sliding filament theory. So there are three types of skeletal muscle, or there are three types of muscle tissue: skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle, and smooth muscle. Skeletal muscle is voluntary. It's controlled by the somatic nervous system, and it attaches to the skeleton. Cardiac muscle is in the heart. This is involuntary. Smooth muscle is located in the walls of internal organs such as digestive organs and blood vessels. They are small cells, and they are also involuntary, controlled by the autonomic nervous system. The muscle has several functions. It stabilizes body positions, stores and moves things within the body. We can think about that with smooth muscle. Thermogenesis means that as muscles make ATP, they generate heat as a byproduct to keep our body temperature warm. There are several properties of muscle tissue: electrical excitability, contractility, extensibility, and elasticity. Excitability means that they have the capacity to respond to electrical signals when stimulated by a neuron. Contractility means that they can contract forcefully due to contractile proteins that we'll talk about inside of the muscle. And extensibility means that they can stretch without being damaged, unlike other cells. They can also return to their original shape after being contracted or stretched, which is a property called elasticity. Muscle cells do not usually undergo mitosis and form new cells if cells are damaged. Part of this reason is because they are formed from small cells called myoblasts, so blasts are immature cells, and these cells fuse together early on in field development to create an immature muscle fiber. And this is why when we look at skeletal muscle cells, we're going to see that they have multiple nuclei in them where these myoblasts form together. Some myoblasts do stick around and form satellite cells, which can help some repair and division of skeletal muscle cells when they're damaged later on, but for the most part, whenever skeletal muscle cells are damaged, many of them are replaced with scar tissue, and when individual muscles grow in size, it is that the individual muscle fibers are adding more proteins in a process called hypertrophy rather than us adding more skeletal muscle cells. When we look at the anatomy of a skeletal muscle, we're going to divide it into smaller organized sections by connective tissue membrane. These muscles are connected to bone by tendons, which is just a connective tissue covering that resists tension in one direction, so it attaches it firmly to bone or skin. When we divide these connective tissue coverings up, the outermost connective tissue covering is the epimysium, which we see labeled in the figure. The epimysium surrounds all skeletal muscle tissues within a muscle. It is the outermost, and it's made of dense, irregular connective tissue. It is very tough, made of collagen. Within that epimysium, you have your skeletal muscle cells organized into bundles known as fascicles. So a fascicle is a bundle of skeletal muscle fibers, and a skeletal muscle fiber by definition is just a skeletal muscle cell. You can see each skeletal muscle fiber circled, that cell, in the image. Perimysium surrounds and organizes each fascicle. Finally, if we look at each individual muscle fiber, so we see at the bottom of the screen an individual muscle fiber, each muscle fiber within the fascicle is surrounded by a areolar connective tissue covering called the endomysium. Endo is the innermost connective tissue covering that surrounds the skeletal muscle cells and the last organization covering for our skeletal muscle fiber. Each skeletal muscle also is considered an organ because it has more than one tissue type in it. So it has muscular tissue, but it also has lymphatics and much blood tissue to bring oxygen and nutrients to the contracting muscle. And it also has a lot of nervous tissue to be electrically stimulated.